Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching this out there on the World Wide Web. This is Jeremy Geelan for SYS-CON TV. I am here at 11th Cloud Expo. I'm in Silicon Valley, as is Alistair Farquharson, CTO of SOA Software. Alistair, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
I wouldn't mind nabbing you, because I know you've just come from a general session. Can you tell the gazillions of SYS-CON TV viewers in extremely succinct terms why APIs are now going to be one of the things to watch in cloud computing?
I think that the demand for APIs is really all around the mobile device. I think that that's what established the demand, because if you think about SOA technologies, it was a technology that was sort of before its time. Before there was a demand for services, before there was a demand for APIs, we came up with a technology to create them. So mobile devices actually need APIs. So that need is driving the advent of the API revolution.
So it's a little, people at home might be thinking that's a little disappointing. So we've now admitted that SOA was a sort of solution in search of a problem, and now lo and behold we are to believe that APIs are not quite like that, but they're actually the solution at the right time, that the problem's there. But you can make that case, I think.
I think you can. I think that APIs are more about how do you actually make money, and SOA is more about how do you save money.
Well, I like that. So making money, that's a message that we should... So give me a use case. It doesn't have to be real, it could be hypothetical, so I'm sure it's just as good. Give me a use case that proves that that is the case. APIs are my new way, I can monetize them. How? What would be a good example?
So a classic example is a business that's sitting on a great deal of information and data. And this business wants to expose an API so that people can actually build mobile applications that leverage that data. So now the organization goes through the trouble, certainly, of creating an API, but they don't have to go through the trouble of building all the applications. So think of an organization that might have a great deal of information about tax, for example. They would simply be able to expose an API, and now that information will be accessible from 100 different mobile devices to 100 different or thousands of different application developers who would then be able to make money, and in turn the tax company would be able to make money as well. So it's all about how do you actually take existing functionality and expose it and make it usable in other applications.
So what would be, what are the textbook examples of the first people, I think we know the answers, but not necessarily watching, the first people who realized this, exposed APIs and have never looked back? Household name.
Well, the classic example is Netflix that people always bring up, which is, and the interesting thing about Netflix is that they did not expose an API. They did not. They did not think about exposing an API. So what they did was they actually built a toolkit to allow people to embed their media on a device. And that thing used an API.
Right.
So then one day they decided, oh, well, let's just expose the API itself. And then it took off. So Netflix was transformed from somebody who delivered DVDs to a content streaming business and a media business.
Law of unintended consequences.
It was.
Rather nice. So what about you guys? You're doing it deliberately. Is the prospect equally bright?
Yeah, well, what we did was we were faced with a challenge, because our customers were coming to us and saying, we want API management. And we looked at it and we said, well, API management is not so different from SOA management, but it does have a different end user. So the person who is now using our product is somebody who is external to the company. Previously with SOA, everybody tends to be internal. Not necessarily cast in stone, but certainly that was the general accepted pattern. So now we had a different user, somebody who was at arm's length to an organization. So a company like a bank or something would want to expose an API, and they would need supporting infrastructure to do that. And while we provided all of the runtime messaging, we didn't actually provide the home for the API, the actual developer portal.
Right.
So we modified our product, we added that developer portal, which we call Community Manager, and we added that to our product suite.
And I mean, it also resonates rather nicely with other things going on. It's a good name, it's the right area. How long is it going to take to maximize, from your point of view, the benefit of that as your new business area? A couple of years, 3 years? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to take a couple of years for organizations. You get the cutting edge people who set the trend, and these are the Facebooks and the Netflixes and et cetera, but not every enterprise is a Facebook and a Netflix, right? A lot of organizations have a lot of other internal concerns. The API might not necessarily be the first priority, but they have a lot of internal value. So I think it's going to be a slow evolution as companies adopt it. I think it's very much akin to people exposing a website. And it took, 10 years for people to actually start realizing the benefit. And then one day they wake up and they realize that they can't live without it. Right. And I think it's a similar thing with APIs. I think they're going to expose them, and it's going to take a little while for them to start getting value out of them. They're going to take a couple of wrong steps along the way. But eventually, it's going to be the way that people do business.
Sounds like a promising future, though, for SOA Software. You're going to have to change the name at some point.
There's been a lot of internal debate about that, I can guarantee it.
I wonder who owns API.com. I think that could be more expensive than even you guys can afford.
I think we missed the boat.
But nonetheless, they did get SOA.com. Thanks so much, Alistair. Let's continue, obviously, following the SOA Software story from now through to June in New York.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And that's Alistair Farquharson, CTO of SOA Software, and thank you for joining us out there on the World Wide Web.